G'day, listeners. Welcome to Barkarati, the Sailing Podcast. My name is Jordan Spencer. It's that time of the week where I get to talk to some cool sailors and my two idiot mates. Looking forward to this week. It's been one crazy week in sailing, so let's bring him in. Mr. Brett Perry.
Greetings, exalted one.
Yeah, I am generally a happy-go-lucky type of person. I'm not spiteful or vengeful in any way.
Okay.
However, I want answers from how this could possibly happen. You know, we've done so well here in this part of the world to work so hard. Everyone put so much effort in, and then this happens. But anyway, I'm over it. I'm happy now. There we go. Thank you.
All right, let's get the other bloke.
He had a voice that could make a wolverine purr.
Mr. Nick Bice.
Literally just touched down back in Adelaide, only probably a couple of hours ago. Straight through the screening, straight into a COVID test. Was sitting on the boat this morning and I'm like, what's going to happen here with the shutdown of the Great Race? And as it turns out, SA borders will be shut from midnight tonight. So
cool.
made it home back. Well, you're allowed to travel, but would have had to quarantine. Thus far, no quarantine needed.
Wow.
Well done.
Is it true in Adelaide they do an anal swab?
Only if you ask for one. I've been back 4 times.
You were.
You were here yesterday. What are you doing? Just went straight to the back of the line again.
Oh, you flew out last night, did you? Why did you put yourself under so much pressure to get on the show?
So, for the overseas listeners, so what's happened in Oz? We've pretty much had everything under control. No COVID at all, and everyone was living a good life. What it turns out and looks like has happened is an overseas flight crew has boarded in, and the guy driving the bus to their hotel has picked it up, then gone out to a party or a pub up in the northern beaches of Sydney, and now we've got a few cases. We're about 30 cases in Oz, and it's spread to the northern parts of Sydney and now into the mainstream parts of Sydney, so the Sydney city. Because it's eliminated all around Australia, everyone's just shut the borders down so that it isolates into a certain area. So we've ended up with the situation that obviously in a few days' time we're due to start the Sydney Hobart. And because that area, no one in Australia is going to let anyone from Sydney in, we have got the news that the Sydney Hobart has been shut down. So we've got with us right now Brad Kellet from CYCA Australia. Well, ex-Commodore.
The future ex-Commodore of the Cruising Yacht Club of Australia.
And he was all fired up to be navigator on board one of the Lion Honours favourites, and now he is going to give us the story, mate. What must have been a stressful time for the old CYC people.
Yeah, g'day, Jordan. It was a bit. We were pushing hard up until the bitter end, including 4 o'clock yesterday afternoon, having meetings to discuss possible alternatives if this was going to happen. And then between the end of that meeting and 5 p.m, the Tassie border made an announcement saying that they were going to quarantine anyone that had visited or any Sydney-siders. So that tied our hands. We had to make the decision then to cancel the race, unfortunately.
That's crazy.
The alternative race conversation continued for about 20 minutes, and then we got the news from the New South Wales government saying that they wanted restrictions in movement, and then we couldn't even postpone or put an alternative on. So we're crushed, really.
Completely. So it's the first time since 1945 the Hobart has or won't be run.
Yeah, never been cancelled before. So it's a bit of a milestone, and unfortunately...
on your watch as well, Bradshaw. How do you feel?
It was a long night coming up with the correct wording for it, but yeah.
Well, here's your opportunity, mate. Here's your opportunity, mate. Express how you really feel. Get it out there. Tell the world.
No, we're all good now. It's a bit of a relief to know the outcome to the whole situation for the race in general, knowing that we're not going to be sending the potential of COVID down to Taswegia.
Yeah. I mean, because they get it twice down there.
I'm not going there.
Hey, mate, easy, Jordan. We've still got a shitload of booze heading down there. We need to sell it somehow.
I was just going to say.
I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah, you
No,
guys
actually-
are going out on this one.
I need to send twice as much.
Was there ever discussed, Brad, that they could quarantine in Customs House? Was that ever discussed? Just leave everyone in Customs House?
That was hoped for. But,
I don't think it's it's not an unusual thing, is it? It's not an unusual thing.
Yeah.
2 weeks could have been a while, though.
Yeah.
Well, 7 days in customs, then 7 days in shipwrights. It'd be all right.
That's it.
Hey, Bradshaw, obviously pretty disappointing. And I mean, I think I can literally say on behalf of all the crews, I mean, your hands were tied. As we saw the story evolve and when we saw the Tassie border shut, one thing I didn't realise, which obviously I've seen in the statement since, is obviously the logistics side, all the race management, all that sort of thing. That is a huge part of the race, and that's basically the what tipped it over the edge, I'm sure. Yeah. But
that's it, right?
We did a qualifier on Thursday night on the Willow, the newly named Willow, 5W70. Yeah, absolutely. And we arrived back on the dock, and you could see all the boats who had just arrived within the last 24 hours, and your heart was going out to them, because as we got closer to land, everyone's phones started going ding, 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 all of the things going off and getting information. But yeah, tough decision, Bradshaw, but a decision that couldn't have gone any other way. So good on CYC for sticking to your guns as long as you could. And it was disappointing, but I don't think there was any other way to do it, mate.
It was. And we've had a lot of respect from the owners of the boats that were entered. Unfortunately, when the Northern Beaches got cancelled from the agenda to go to Tasmania, we had a couple of boats having to pull out, crews mix and matching, and it was really looking like a bit of an extraordinary race at that time. But then, fortunately, I think the Tassie government made this decision nice and early, 6 days before the event. And, we just had to do it. So, unfortunately, we're not holding the race this year, but there'll be a better race next year, I'm sure.
Mate, you certainly know how to string it along. So will this mean that there'll be another celebration next year for the 75th running of females being involved in the event? Did Nick Douglas have anything to do with this?
Wouldn't want to leave the jigs out, would we?
I reckon BP's the one that's done this, because he wanted to make sure his X2, no Hobart's going without an X2 in it from now on.
Absolutely. That's what it's all about. No, actually, I just want to say, just on boats pulling out and that, we pulled in a conference call on Friday night when it was looking bad, because obviously Blackjack, they lost everyone except 4 crew. And so we were at the Drummoyne Sailing Club, the Mighty Palace. There was Gardo, myself, and a few others. And Nick Kingsmill.
Wealth of knowledge
we rang up Brucey Clark, and we signed up. We were on. We were ready to go.
Wow.
Yeah. So we were ready to go. It was all good.
I would have been even more worried then.
Well, Nick Kingsmill was starting helmsman. Gardo was going to be on the main, and then
line honours was going to be all over.
Hey, Bradshaw, just before we do wrap it up, how was the weather looking, mate? We ran a route this morning, 1 day 9 hours on the Volvo 70.
For us, 1 day 4 hours.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Just would have had that thing underwater the whole time.
It's gonna be.
Yeah, it would have been our 1 day 13 hours that we got with her in 2016. We that record for 4 hours then.
The good news is, if it's saying that a week out, we would have got absolutely pummeled during the race.
On the nose.
Good one.
Which I wouldn't have been too upset about.
Big sympathies to all the owners who spent a massive amount of money, and to the organisers who put a lot of time and effort in, and to everyone that sort of. I don't know. I literally have no clue what I'm going to do Boxing Day. Literally, I cannot. My mum and dad were talking to me the other day saying, what do you want to do for Christmas? I said, we don't do Christmas. You get together on Boxing Day. That's what sailing families do.
Hobart time.
Yeah.
Anyway. But, there's a boy that used to fly down to Hobart every year before I started doing them at the age of 16. I've got no idea what happens. Yeah. I might just take my own little Colt 43 cruising with the wife and the dog and find out what real families do.
Cool.
Yeah. And a beautiful vessel that is, Bradshaw. Been good to see you the last couple of weeks, mate.
Mate, good to see you too.
Big decision, and it's going to make for a big one next year.
Onward and upward, lads. That's it.
Look forward to seeing the X2 in the fleet next year.
Thank you.
We're prepared.
And it wasn't my doing, okay? Please.
Right, mate.
Good on you,
okay,
Bradshaw.
Thanks, fellas.
Thanks,
see you, Brad.
Cheers, Bradshaw.
Cheers.
See ya.
Right, lads. Well, we should bring our special guest straight in on the program. We've got so much going on in the world of sailing this week, and the one thing I really wanted to do is to celebrate the halfway mark of the Vendee. So it was pretty easy for us to target a guest. BP has been hammering us to get this bloke on the show. Probably be the most successful US-based short-handed sailor. Ryan Breymaier joins our show. Welcome to the show, mate.
Thanks very much. It's nice to be here.
Hey, Ryan.
Now it's going to be very exciting.
How was the pronunciation of the last name? Jordan's normally pretty good with that stuff.
Yeah, Breymaier. That's it. He did a good job. Absolutely.
Normally he whacks a French accent on it. So
well, thankfully he figured out I was from the US then.
Well, you are in the south of France though, and we'll get to that. But mate, exciting times. You must be stuck to the tracker of the Vendee at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, stuck is a strong word. I do look at it once a day. I have my vested interests in Boris Herman's race, so I spend a lot of time paying attention to that. But honestly, I don't really need the tracker because I have WhatsApp with Boris. And so I spend pretty much all day thinking about the Vendee Globe because he WhatsApps me constantly. So
he's a great communicator, Boris.
And I'll tell you what, he's having a cracker of an effort.
Mm.
Yeah, he is. He's both those things are true. It's been interesting because I'll be very honest. Boris, in the Indian Ocean, he's very unhappy with the performance of the boat that we put so much time and energy into because it's a boat that can't keep its nose out of the waves in front, and so it really makes it super stressful to sail for him. So for the Indian Ocean, if you've been paying attention to it, has been super rough, crossed waves, short waves, and so. He basically said to me, he said, I'm doing averages that I would have done on the Class 40 when I did the Class 40 race, like in 2006, I think is when he did that, 6 or 8. And he says, with the IMOCA we did the Barcelona on in 2010, we'd have been long ahead of this boat, which is a statement considering 10 years of evolution, massive foils, which it's the better part of €500,000 and then some to put the foils in the boat, and the average is still under 20 knots, which is.
Do you think that's why John Le Cam's up there? Is that because of the sea state? Do you think that's probably paid a bit of a? And there is other non-foilers that are sort of showing their cards at the moment.
Yes. So what's happened? Two things have happened. Jean Le Cam's boat is a special case because that's a boat that's already won the Vendee Globe, and Jean has been sailing on it now. For a long, long time. Won the Barcelona World Race with Bernard Stammen at the last one that they did, and did the last Vendee very successfly, and just keeps working on it. That boat has sitting on the dock. It has something like 6.5, almost 7 degrees of rake now, and that's all in an attempt to keep the nose out of the water, which is the key. It's the key to sailboat racing at this stage. Keep the nose out of the water. You go fast downwind, and if I may rant a little bit here, yacht designers today use a computer and they trust implicitly their computer modeling, and the computer says no rockers faster all the time. And so none of the boats have any rocker. And the end result is that they're stressful to sail. They break due to shock loading when you run them into the backs of waves. They're super dangerous because they're full of water on the deck. And when you talk to these guys, no matter who it is you talk to, and I talk to all of them, they all say, no, you don't need more rocker. Transom immersion is good. And
I see you put on a French accent there.
Yeah, they're blind to the reality of going out and actually sailing a boat in the ocean.
Yeah, well, it's pretty rough on their
Hey,
office.
on to Jean Lecamp with the 6-7 degrees. Do you think there's going to be a day when the rig moves so far back in the boat that the bowsprit gets shorter and the boom overhangs the stern?
No, because they've got a rule now for how far aft in percentage terms the rig can be, and everybody's at the max aft that you're allowed to be now. What they have done is the new rule iteration is that there's no more rake limit, and you can put the rake where you want now.
Yep.
So,
we're going to see some funny looking rigs.
So now two things will happen. One, the yacht designers will see that as their opportunity to keep the bottom of the boat as flat as possible. With the idea that, if we put 7 degrees of rake in, we're going to get dynamic lift off the Gennaker, and then the bow's going to come up and it's all going to be wonderful again, which I can tell you dynamic lift is a pipe dream, and it's a way for the yacht designer to not have to do any actual work. The problem is that they, as I said before, they think that it's all good, but there's two schools of thought. There's the school of thought of this Occitan, which is like a huge bow that won't bury, basically, and that's good. But then the slamming loads are monstrous when you have that situation. And Jean Lecamp's boat is a bit like that. That boat was modified after Mitch Dej won the Vendee. Jorg Reichers got it, and he cut like 10 meters off of the bow from basically the entire bottom of the boat off of the boat, and made it as full as you possibly could to simulate a scow bow, because he was thinking about that already, like 9 years ago, something like that. And so that boat now, and Jean's sailing it. So first of all, Jean has not put a foot wrong all the way around the world. That guy has done this a lot. He's very, very talented. He conserves his energy. He makes smart sail calls. You could see it right at the very beginning of the race when they went through that little tropical storm in the Northeast Trades. Everybody, all the foiling boats, which are fragile, they all stayed as far away from it as possible. Jean and Hugo Boss railed right through it. Jean saying that he was sailing with 2 reefs in the main and no jib, because there's no point in putting out a jib yet, because in 2 hours I'm going to have to roll it up and change anyway, so I'll just sail along with just the main. You won't hear anybody else admit to that. That's for sure.
Yeah, sure.
Fantastic.
But so he's very smart about the way he sails, with the situation as it is, what happens is that these boats with dagger boards, they don't accelerate to 35 knots down every wave, which is dangerous, and that's so you feel more confident in pushing the boat harder, because it isn't gonna go 30. And if it doesn't go 30, then the shock loads at the bottom of the wave aren't going to be quite as bad. Whereas, like Boris, for example, he'd start off down the wave, and at the bottom of the wave, the thing would be doing 32, 34, 36 knots and slam into the wave in front. And because the nose doesn't lift, it's really like straight into the back of the wave.
Wow.
And then when it stops, it's doing 12, and it has to reaccelerate again. So from 12 to 30 on every wave. You imagine you don't sleep because the pilot can't handle it, so it either wants to Chinese or broach, and the fatigue is enormous when you can't just let the boat sail on its own. So yeah, I mean, it's those guys, I'm not taking anything away from the 3 guys who are at the front of the fleet with their daggerboard boats, no doubt about it. It's been a special year in terms of weather in the Indian Ocean, and actually down the South Atlantic as well, which has favored artificially these older boats. But something's got to be done. And, before the Vendee, everybody already knew, the Charal with their version 2 foils and all the rest of it. Part of that was trying to get the thing to VMG run, because these boats won't VMG run. They're just too flat. The bow's underwater, and it's just terrible.
Yeah.
So.
Hey, Ryan, just so you know, mate, don't hold back when you're on our show. We don't need you to hold back in any way. I love it,
really
mate.
feel.
I love it.
Yeah. I mean, it's none of this is secret. Everybody knows it in the French industry there. I mean, everybody, all the boats have been trying to get the things to VMG run. You know, we moved when we did the new foils for Boris, we moved them 600 mil forward of where they were to begin with, trying to get the bow more out of the water, sacrificing reaching or upwind performance for the sake of a bow that would stay out of the water. And I'll tell you, the boat in flat water is magic. It's magic. It's 10 knots quicker than the breeze, anywhere from 80 to 130 true wind angle. It's 10 knots quicker than the breeze. And that doesn't change with wind speed. If you've got 20 knots of breeze, the thing does 30 all the time. If you've got 15 knots of breeze, it does 25 all the time. So it's outrageous how good the performance is in flat water. As soon as you get into the waves, all of a sudden you're on the same boat as before with a big old foil sticking off the side of it.
Wow.
Unfortunately.
Wow. It's crazy. I might just give everyone a little bit of background on yourself, mate, so we can sort of let everyone know who we're talking to, in case you haven't heard of Ryan. So he's got a bunch of world speed records, predominantly from the time with sailing Maxi Try the Lending Club 3, which Cows to Dinard, Newport to Bermuda. Also, you did the Barcelona World Race with Boris, which is sort of where the relationship starts. Then
Absolutely.
You won the New York to Barcelona race on the Hugo Boss, so you've got plenty of time on the IMOCA boats, and you've been doing this for quite a while, and there's a whole list of other accomplishments. So I just wanted people to sort of know that this is something that you're fully experienced in, and now you're working with Team Milica as an advisory role because on the technical side.
Yeah, I do two things for them. One, I do all their rigging. So I'm splicing rope when I'm in the shed with the guys. But basically, I advise Boris quite a lot on things. We take decisions together in regards to, like, for example, the foil project, who we're going to go to, what foils we're going to use, what yard we're going to get to build them, and all this stuff, what architect we're going to work with. You know, we work on a lot of that stuff together. He trusts my judgment about all that, and it leaves him a bit more free to one, go sailing, which is a fucker for me, because I'd love to be out there doing the sailing as well, but it's a single-handed boat. And two, just because I have a little bit more experience in the technical side, in the pure technical side, than he does. You know, he spent a lot more time looking for money, which is why he's sailing around the world right now. Compared to me, I've done a lot of looking for money too, but I just haven't had any yeses yet. So
yeah, well, maybe after the show, mate, we'll keep the conversation going. So with the foil package with Boris, because as we know, he's got an older boat, and then you know, we've been following Boris since day one on Barcarati.
Literally since day one on Barcarati. Literally
since day one, yeah. And Boris and I used to race against each other in the old 505 days.
There you go.
So we're sort of keen, and then you went through this process for the foils, and to be honest, that boat looks like it's going pretty well. You know, like we're pretty happy to see how well he's doing. Yeah,
the foils are a massive equalizer. If you can find the 600 grand to put foils into your IMOCA 60 into your old boat, as soon as the boat lifts off, it goes the same speed as everybody else. You know, we put those foils in the boat and went out sailing, and on the first day we're doing the same speed as Chirel on a straight line.
Yeah.
So, you know, Chirel's a $6.5 million boat, and you know, the one advantage they have a new boat is in the transition areas.
Yeah.
Because our boat is older, it's heavier. We're probably, without giving too much away, we're probably 700 kilos heavier than the new boats. Which equates basically to a knot and a half, 2 knots more wind to lift off.
Yep.
But once you're lifted off, I mean, it's a foil and a rudder in the water and like 3 square meters of the trail ending end of the boat, and so you know, you just go the same speed. As long as you have a decent sail package, then it really is, all the boats are the same after that. So
it's very cool. I'm sort of interested with the time when Boris sort of adjusted to help with the rescue. the time recalculation. I'm trying to remember what it was. I think he's got 6 hours or something, hasn't he, for Boris? Do you remember?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think that's what it was, 6 hours. He was the one that after Jean Le Cam, he was the one that was right there on the direct line downwind to get there.
Yeah.
So in fact, his diversion off the route wasn't massive.
No.
And last week I was in Vendee Globe race direction for the week, doing their live show for them, and there was an awful lot of discussion about all this and how are we going to deal with this and what are we going to do and what can we actually consider in the calculations and all the rest of it. There was a lot of talking about we should be giving credit for accumulated fatigue and for emotional ups and downs and all this kind of stuff. And sitting there with the race direction, thankfully the guy who runs the race, Jacques Carré, he was a competitor for many years before this. He was the bowman on Orange 2 when they got the Jules Verne record, for example. He knows what he's talking about. And we sat there and looked at each other when people are saying all this, and he was like rolling his eyes. And I said, yeah, all you can do fairly, because otherwise it's just a shit show behind it. You can get Christian Dumas, who's the race meteorologist, to say specifically how much time was spent looking at the boat's tracks, when did they divert, how much did it cost them, and how much time did they take in the search area. And if you give more time than that, you're opening yourself up to like the most ridiculous amount of nonsense ever. And it needs to happen now, because that way later on at the end of the race, nobody can argue, because the decision was taken 2 months ago, or a month and a half ago. Yeah, and thankfully that's what they've done. Yeah. And everybody says, well, fuck, what's going to happen when Yannick Besteven finishes 3 hours behind Charlie Dallin and he's got 9 hours of redress and he wins the race on his redress? And I said, well, what's going to happen is that people are just going to accept it, because that's reality. It costs him 9 hours. Nothing that anyone can do about it. And guess what? If you turn around and you don't give him the win at that stage, well then who the fuck's going to stop for the guy next time?
Yeah. No,
true. Jean Le Cam put in to add a little bit more time because Kevin had some of his blue cheese on board, and he's going to.
Well, Jean Le Cam actually made out on the deal, because the French,
he got a bunch of butter as well, didn't he?
The French Navy gave him. There's this cult pig in a can called pâté hanaf, which is spam. No, it's better than that. The cult part about it is that they don't just use all the offcuts. They just butcher the pig and put the entire thing into the can.
They squeeze it in. A freeze-dried pig in a can.
All the good bits of meat as well. And so this stuff actually is pretty good. If you ever eat pâté or terrine or whatever, it's all a bit like just fat and bits of whatever. And the pâté hanaf actually still has chunks of meat in it. And so, well, it's true. And part of the when they took Kevin back off of his boat with the frigate handed over, and you can see it in the videos, the frigate handed over a big bag of food to make up for what Kevin had eaten for him. Yeah. And all stories being true, they ate a shitload more than what was than 1 week's worth of food for one guy, because they were recovering from
three cans of pâté and
having
15 sleeves of burners.
Yeah.
French high tea.
Win-win all round.
Exactly. Plus butter.
Butter. I heard he got a bunch of butter. Yeah, good on him.
Yeah, in Brittany, that's pig and butter and flour makes the world go round. It's that and alcohol.
Hey, actually, one of your boats that you did a bit of time on in the past is the Volvo 70 when it was Maserati.
Yeah, well, two of them, Maserati and Camper. Yeah, so the Maserati Volvo 70 is sitting abandoned underneath that bridge still, if I'm not mistaken, isn't it?
The Maserati Volvo 70 has been 100% fully resurrected, and I was about to go to Hobart on it.
Oh, this is Willow. Okay, yeah, I didn't know.
So that's Willow. Jim Cooney brought it off of Giovanni or whatever happened to it. And I'm going to say it's probably in the best shape of its life.
Is it still the same guy? Still
No,
same
so
owner.
Jim Cooney owns it, who former owner of Comanche.
Yeah, right. Okay.
No, yeah. But it's no, she's in really good shape.
Beautiful.
Well,
that's
if nothing else,
a great boat. That's
Yeah.
a boat that will keep its nose out from time to time.
Well, I'm not sure if I told you, but we were potentially going to win the Sydney Hobart next week. But now that's been called off. We'll just have to wait for next year.
Yeah.
But the boys got the boat in bloody good shape. And a great boat, as you say. But as for camper, well, that's a boat that doesn't keep its nose out of the water.
That
should have been about a metre further aft.
Let me just explain something to you. That boat is now the fastest Volvo 70 on the planet, without a doubt.
Extended?
No, it's not extended. We put a trim tab on the keel. The top 2.5 meters of the keel fin have got a trim tab on it.
Yeah.
And so now you sail along with the Fro in 15 knots of breeze, Fro in the full main in 15 knots, and the boat, with the tab in the center, the boat does 15, 16 and a half with the nose fully underwater. And you put the tab on, you give it 2.5 degrees of tab, the knuckle of the bow is a foot out of the water, and the thing's doing 19.
Really, I reckon if the Volvo 70s had keel pin axis a few degrees, they'd still be sailing.
Yeah.
I agree too. If they had done a little better job with the class rules at the time, and if they had outlawed trucking and shipping, that would have helped with decision making to keep the boat stronger. And then either keel tilt or, this keel, the trim tab thing, one, was cheap to do, and two, made an absolutely enormous difference. And the nice part about it, you can turn it off as well when it's not useful. But keel tilt would have been huge for sure. The problem with keel tilt is that when you get going fast, it knocks you over.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
That generation of IMOCA 60s, like the one that I won the New York to Barcelona race on, they had like 7.5 degrees of keel tilt.
Yeah.
And you'd get going, you'd be 22 degrees of heel. The puff would hit, the boat would accelerate like 2 knots, and it would heel over to like 30 because of the tilt. And then if the puff was still there, it would then pick up out of the water like 100 mil and take off doing another 3 knots quicker. But you had to be very careful because you could pretty well put it on its side like that too. Faster you get going, the more it heels over.
I'm sure you probably would have realized in the last Volvo with the 65s, they had 6 degrees, and they were dropping the keel down when they're reaching speeds over 15, 16, 17 knots to give more riding moment. So
on Boris's boat, for example, it's got 7.5 degrees of tilt as well because it was designed with only little foils, and they thought flying it on the foil and on the keel fin would be a good plan. And it is to some extent, but it's too much. And so on Boris's, we sail around between like almost maximum, except for VMG running, maximum 25 degrees out of 38. And in general, the thing sails between 10 and 15 degrees of keel now.
Yep.
So.
Hey, for those who want to know and see camper, I think there's, if you just Google on YouTube, Chris Nicholson camper, I think it's Bay of Biscay. There's about 2 or 3 minutes of footage where you'll just get a real idea of basically the thing's a submarine. But it's some of the best sailing footage you'll ever see. It's hilarious. It is hilarious. So.
Yeah, it isn't anymore. You can also find some video of it sailing. We did a couple of years ago. We did the before Antigua Sailing Week. There's that Around the Island record. We did that. I think there's some video of it there, and also from the start of the Caribbean 600 that year. And it's a transformed machine. It really is.
Cool.
It's cool. It's a very good boat.
All right. Well, let's say somebody contacts you after the show, mate, and says, "Okay, here's full funding." What given everything you're watching right now that's going on in the Vendee, what boat do you turn up with for the next Vendee?
We're talking full funding here, the whole lot.
You can have whatever you want. You can go.
Okay. Well, so if I have to pick an existing boat, I would pick the Manuard design. The Occitan.
Wow.
Because that boat is a descendant of a project that I had with Sam to do a flying 100-footer in 2015, and that's a very nicely designed boat. I would also hold Sam's head underwater and make him put a little more rocker in the thing. That's for sure. But otherwise, if I had full funding and I was just on my own blank sheet of paper for designing a boat, I don't think it would look much like any of the boats that exist right now.
Tell us more.
I don't want to tell you that much more. I'm hoping to find some funding and build it.
No, we've got the funding. We're ready to go.
Yeah. No, I mean, it would be the polar opposite of the IMOCA 60 class as it stands right now.
Wow.
Narrow or wide?
Narrow. Yeah.
Yeah. Relying on the foils.
Let's put it this way: the closest boat in your part of the world that exists to what I'm thinking about would be
Wild Oats.
The little one.
66.
Oh, okay.
66.
So the Rockall Q 66.
66.
Interesting. Would those boats go up and downwind really well? At windward Lords?
Ain't super light hull if you're relying on foils.
And then, obviously when you're power reaching, then that's it. So you got your foils for your power reaching.
You got the biggest foil in the world to make you go reaching, and the rest of the time you have a boat that's slippery.
Turning into a trimaran.
This is it. I'm gonna build the central hull of a trimaran with 2 gigantic foils, and that'll be that.
Yeah. Well, I don't think. I mean, that conversation's happened in a lot of design rooms. I'll be honest. But then the risk is the foils. So, yeah. So who's going to win?
What my perspective on that is that the risk to the foils is there regardless of the hull shape that you've got. So you may as well have the hull shape which is going to win you the Vendee Globe, right? I mean, the foils can break on any boat. It just means that you're already screwed if your foil breaks. In this case, you're a bit more screwed, but more screwed or screwed is still screwed, right? So
Just depends on the level of screwed, right?
Yeah.
So
you just have to use smaller sails.
Will the foils go to fully retractable?
That's what Occitan has right now, and it wouldn't be my first choice. I don't see the need to fully retract the foils. I think that in the sailing that I've done on the boats with foils, we were sailing against Charal in the light with code zeros, like sailing at 110 true wind angle with the code 0 and 6 to 8 knots of breeze, and they were coming up behind us pretty quick. And I was like, what the fuck, it's light air. There shouldn't be this massive difference. We're both in the water, and of course they have a bit narrower hull, a bit more round hull, so they should be better in the light anyway. But the speed they were doing, like 2 knots quicker. And we start looking at them in the binoculars, and you couldn't see the top of the foil. So you could tell that the foil was in the water. It wasn't retracted. And so we're like, well, that's funny. And well, let's just try it. And so in 6 to 8 knots of breeze, we stuck the foil all the way down in the water, and you would expect that to be a massive drag penalty. And we didn't need righting moment. The boat wasn't heeling over, but put it in the water, and all of a sudden they weren't catching us anymore.
Wow.
Very interesting.
So it's very strange. And I don't think anyone can still explain exactly why this is reality. But the fact of the matter is that even in 6 to 8 knots of breeze, at the right angle, the foil is helpful. So, I would say more, there's 2 extremes. Like there's the Occitan extreme where it's up out of the boat and way up in the air and a long way away from the water. And you're going to sail around in this mode where you're just sailing with the scow bow with no foils when it's really rough or in light air. And then there's the other extreme, which is like Coram, where the foil sitting at the dock, the tip of it is fully underwater, which means that in light air, there's absolutely no way to get the foil out of the water at all. And so that I don't think is that great either. But ours, on the other hand, sitting at the dock, the elbow of the foil is about 75 mil off of the water, which means that, it's going to be in the water when you heel over. And in fact, what we found is that it's worse to have the tiny elbow just above the water or just hitting the water. In fact, putting it down like 500 mil and having like the big elbow fully immersed all the time is the best. And so I think that having the opportunity to get it out when it's really, really light, but most of the time you have it in just a little bit is fine.
Very cool.
It's not really that much drag.
Very interesting. Yeah, it's good. You're giving some good information here for budding.
budding yacht designers everywhere.
Yeah.
Let's talk about it.
Yeah.
Hang on. I'm just sending a message to the Maserati True Chat. What's the penalty for adding a trim tab to the fin? That will keep
I'll explain to you that
water.
The trim tab costs the same as the water ballast.
Wow.
Yep. Oh yeah. No, we looked into all of when we were doing the Super 60. We had a solid 5 flaps running on that fella, one of which being on the fin, which was that's another story.
He knows why I've lost it.
All of which.
That's another story. Next time you speak to Coxie Ryan, ask him about the 5 flaps.
So for my own edification, the Super 60 is the boat that Thomas Royan has, right?
Yeah, correct. That's the hull. Yeah.
And did it have those rudders as well?
No, no. So it's just the hull, and then Thomas did essentially the foils, the foil package, and the deck package himself.
When you guys were looking at the foils, were you looking at foils like that, or were you looking at foils like the Maserati, like the Malaysia ones?
No, there was probably 3 or 4 different. We didn't quite make it that far when the pin got pulled, to tell you the truth. Still testing.
Okay.
I think, as you know, during the design process, I think we settled on hull number 17 is where we ended up, and we were quite early in we were only up to 4 or 5 different foil shapes at the time. So, yeah. Well, but anyway,
let's just dive into the old Vendee. Just we got half the race to go. We got a couple of cyclones sort of formed up around Fiji and so forth, and we might actually get a bit of rolling swell, but they've still got lots of sort of patchy wind as they head. If you're in New Zealand, look down at the moment, you'll be able to see the boats. And
they might be able to see
look down,
the UK America's Cup boat too. They're trying to run.
It's another subject. We'll bring that up in a minute.
We'll come up to that shortly. So, just looking at the race, Ryan, what's your thoughts? How's it going to play out from here?
Well, I don't want to put bad luck on the fleet, but the worst is over. The Indian Ocean is generally the roughest, and the Pacific Ocean is generally pretty easy. Whether that's actually reality or whether that's because people have gotten used to being in the Southern Ocean is another story. But the Pacific in general, once you get a little bit away from New Zealand, is a bit more reasonable, a bit more orderly, and there's not so much landmass around, which causes weather systems and all that. So you kind of find yourself in the a bit more in the classic Southern Ocean, bigger waves, more stable wind, one big load that pushes you along for a long time, and all that. So they're coming into an area where they're going to be in good shape once they get away from all the effect of these cyclones and the land and all the rest of it. So, once they all manage that, I think you're going to see a bit more of the classic Vendee Globe. And just like all these around the world races, maybe not quite the same with the 65s because they managed to all stay close together. But it's always this shock cord effect, and everybody back and forth on the weather systems and the races decided, a week and a half ago, talking to Alan Rora, and he's saying, I'm just furious with myself because my race is over. He says, I really, really, really tried to stay with the lead group. I had a couple of problems. I didn't manage it. And now look, they're 1,100 miles ahead. That's the end of it. Never going to catch up. And unfortunately, especially with a not first generation, not recent generation boat, it's true. He's got no opportunity now to improve. All he can do is have the best finish possible within the group that he's in. And he's in that position now. It's the same thing for anybody in the Vendee, unless there's a massive shutdown of wind somewhere. It's going to be the general finishing order is pretty much decided already.
You're in a different phase, different windows. It's like Chiral now, drop back again to another 3,600 miles behind or something. They're on the same rubber band effect, except their rubber band is bloody huge.
Yeah, and he started 9 days after the fleet on
Correct.
The second try. It's Mitch Dej won the Vendee after starting after going back and restarting, but he was less than 48 hours after their proper start, and he had better weather from behind for most of the race, so he was able to really do it. In fact, that's what I was laughing with Seb Joss the other day. He's like, yeah, there's only one person in the world that can skip weather systems, and that's Mitch Dish, and it's probably true because nobody else has done it. And, Octa 10 is what we were talking about, and can he come back? Can he get up to Clarisse Cremer and Roman Attanasio? The question is, it's possible looking at the performance and the polars of the boats, but in reality, can he push it hard enough to actually do that? Does he have enough? Does he have enough intestinal fortitude to push it that hard for that long to get up to the next group?
Well, you've got to almost break through the weather system in front of you, which is just nearly impossible.
Well, he won't break through the weather system, but right now he's on the same system as them. He's just on the back end of it, and they're on the front end of it. So he has to go so much faster than them that he can manage to stay ahead of what's coming up behind him to block him, and stay on their weather system all the time. Which,
correct.
And it's possible 3 knots quicker. At one point during the week that I was there, he was doing 80 miles a day quicker than them. 80 miles a day quicker, and they were only. What were they? They started off like 700 miles ahead of him, and he's down to like 400 now. So he's pushing pretty well.
Yeah.
But is it possible? Not really.
So you've got to say the race so far has been pretty exciting. It's been good. There's been a lot of ups and downs, but it's been a lot closer than in the past.
Yeah, one part of the race. That's the thing is we were looking at the last race, and the last race. The 2016 race was the fastest race that there's ever been. And there was quite a bit, there wasn't massive destruction in the fleet. There's quite a few boats that finished. But at the time when we were looking, which was Charlie Dallin was like 2 days from Cape Lewin, the first 10 boats in the fleet were all within 500 miles of each other.
Yeah.
At 12,000 miles around the world, or maybe 10,000 miles around the world. And we looked back previously, and the first 10 boats were it was more than 1,000 miles between the boats, and they were already what was it? So, 2 days from Cape Lewin, and Armella Cleash was already underneath of New Zealand. The weather is massively, massively worse this time around than the last time.
So who wins?
Ryan, when you talk to the Vendee race organisers, just give them a heads up. Louis Burton is about to run into Macquarie Island.
He's going there to hide, boss. He's got a lot to fix.
He needs to go around the top of it, get out of the wind first.
Yeah,
he's planning on anchoring there. He has problems with the track at the top of the rig that he wants to fix. And massive autopilot problems, broken sails. His is not a high budget program, and for him to have been in the position he was with the speeds he was doing was pretty incredible to most people watching it who have a clue about preparation levels and all that. And
sure,
I hope he realizes the chandlery times down there aren't normal.
Yeah, they're running COVID restrictions, so
you can't just step ashore and go and get a new pair of boots.
Is there anything there? Is there even a little cove or something to anchor in?
Well,
just a rock he's got to anchor behind.
Certainly the western side looks extremely weather beaten in the sense that there's not much there. So he's going to have to go and obviously hang in the lee a little bit. But as for the topography,
but in the lee, is there a weather station or research there or anything?
Probably
people
research.
Looking at penguins.
Yeah, penguins and seals. There'd be a bunch of scientists down there
having a good time.
Probably a couple of pig shooters. And I'm not lying. I went down to Campbell Island, Enderby Island, and I'm just a quick one. It was Christmas Eve. Got this knock on the boat. It was 3 people in sea kayaks. You are kidding me, I said. One was studying flora, the other was studying fauna, and the third one was a pig shooter.
Just there to kill all the wild pigs.
And cats and rabbits. Yeah. But dare say the next day I heard this thud on the deck, like a boop. Get up on deck and there's this little pig scun, hooved and headed and gutted. Oh, God. What a beautiful tasting pig that was.
That's awesome.
An Enderby Island pig.
Amazing.
Can't buy that in the butcher.
No. That's great.
So with Louis, obviously his partner is Sylvain Escoffier.
Yep.
And she's obviously a noted sailor of her own. So, they're obviously doing it together a little bit, I reckon. Do you talk to Sylvain much at all?
Yeah, my first exposure to IMOCA 60 sailing was the Barcelona World Race in 2007, and I worked for her and Albert Vargas on Educación Sin Fronteras. So I've known Sylvain since she was 19. 19 or 22, something like that. I don't know how old she was. Young. I don't talk to her much these days, but I did talk to Louis and their shore team about his problems with his rig, because he had the same problem that Boris had during the Vendee Arctic race. So yeah, I honestly don't talk to her that much. I did that project with her, and then she had a Route du Rhum catamaran project years later, where I volunteered my spare time to help her because she didn't have any money for it. So the Escoffier family in France is like French sailing royalty. Their father, Bob Escoffier, is Sylvain's father, and he has a bunch of boats. He's done the Route du Rhum a few times and all the rest of it, and makes money on that. And then Sylvain's done her thing. Sylvain is the cousin of Kevin Escoffier, who is the son of Franck-Yves Escoffier. Franck-Yves Escoffier owns a fishing fleet out of Saint-Malo and had the boats called Crepes Wahoo, the multi-50s, years ago. So it's all one small interconnected family in Brittany there.
Well, I was interested because Louis was looking really good there for a while.
Yeah,
he looked like I think he was in the podium places there for a while, and it's sort of all gone away for the poor bugger, which is a bit of a bummer, because that's kind of half the story at the Vendee. Like some of these people are just having a roll, they're just having a go.
Yeah, I mean, this is his third try at the Vendee. And the reason that he's had so much trouble is because he had autopilot issues. And the autopilot issues caused some massive broaching and squalls and stuff like that, which is how he ripped the top of the main off the rig and also blew up some sails. So it all, back to my ideal Vendee Globe project, the first person I'm going to hire is the guy who does the electronics, and they're going to be one of the best in the world, 100%, no doubt about it, because that is the key to getting around the world: electronics and electricity. And
did you hear that, listeners? Did you hear that, listeners? I have to say, did you hear that, listeners? Because we're going through this right at the moment on my little boat. So take heed.
Yeah. If your electronics don't work flawlessly for the year before the Vendee, you may as well stay home.
Wow.
Honestly.
Wow.
There you go.
Wow. There's some good discussion.
Think about it. If you don't have electricity, you can't make water. You're going to die. If you don't have an autopilot, you're going to do what Louis Burton does. Louis Burton had hand steered for 3 days this week, 24 hours a day, 3 days. Impossible. All the while trying to figure out how to fix the autopilot.
We used to just shove your thong under there, just in between the tiller and the deck.
And now in Australia, that's a shoe.
You jandle. Well, actually, it could work both ways on a shot cord each way.
We used to do exactly the same thing. Unfortunately, a modern IMOCA 60 is like a fighter jet. It works in the instability. So if you're not driving it full time, it won't go in a straight line. 100% will not go in a straight line.
Crazy,
which is sad.
So
anyway,
the poor old Louis, the first thing he'll do, he'll drop anchor and then he'll fall asleep. I reckon he'll
sleep for a week.
He'll probably need to, because it's going to be hard to.
The scariest thing for anybody in the Vendee Globe is to have to go and do this, what he's about to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you're on your own. You're on your own. Yep.
Well, and you have this fear that you're going to show up there and there's going to be somebody there, some well-meaning scientist who wants to catch your dock lines or help you anchor. And Bernard Stam had this trouble. He anchored in a cove underneath of some island somewhere near New Zealand. I don't know which one. And there was a Russian fishing trawler in there. And one of the Russians jumped onto the deck of his boat, which means that his Vendee Globe was over.
Yeah.
And because it's all so publicized in the media, it was impossible for him to hide. And there you have it. That was the end of his race. So Bernard Stam also, I hate to beat on Bernard Stam, but he went to the Kerguelen Islands to do the same thing, to anchor and sort his shit out. And he ended up on the lee shore on the rocks with the boat on its side on the rocks. They picked it up with a crane and dropped it sideways onto some tires onto the deck of a resupply ship and got it back to the real world. Actually, they didn't even get it back to the real world. They put it in a dump in Reunion Island after they stripped all the winches and shit off of it. So,
Wow.
This is what happens when you're a Vendee Globe skipper and you need to anchor somewhere. You have a very good chance of either having your race be over or having a major problem. So
the other thing you got to think about is it's not like these people have lots of visitors, you see. So they're quite excited when a boat rocks up. That's all they want to do. They want to go and have a rum and a chat.
Yeah, exactly. Well, if Boris has to stop, there'll be plenty of rum. So it's fine.
Oh, really? Yeah. Tell us more.
Yeah, well, everybody has their proclivities in that respect, and Boris is no different. I would say that the vast majority of the boats have got alcohol on board for sure.
Hey, what about like with Thomas and with Alex with the noses of the boats? Have you heard any sort of in depth about that? You know how?
What do you mean, Thomas?
Thomas, he did some damage to the nose of his boat, didn't he?
No, Thomas Royan had a problem with a leaking foredeck hatch, which filled.
Oh, is that all it was? I just assumed. Isn't that terrible?
I don't know whether he forgot to close it properly or what happened, but that's how he filled up the bow. Foredeck hatch problem.
So he slowed right down to repair a leaking forehatch.
No, he slowed right down. I saw the video of it this morning. He slowed right down because he had a meter of water in the bow. A meter of water,
free surface,
by 5 meters wide, by 4 meters, 4.5. So he had 5 times 4 is 20. So he had 20 tons of water in the bow of the boat.
Yeah, that can't be fast.
Free surfaces.
Yeah, and free surface behind that.
That keeps the bow down.
Apparently he was
foil's going to lift up there.
No, apparently he was alerted to the problem due to a vicious broach, and then the boat didn't want to go flat again.
Yep.
As the water's on the roof.
This is fatigue, right? I mean, you don't know you've got that much water in the bow of your boat because you're very tired. So that was the problem. Alex's problem, I don't know what to say about that. I mean, the sort of design logic of the IMOCA 60 is, no matter what innovation we have, we want to be as light as the lightest boat of the previous generation. And so, PRB is a good example of this as well, a better example than Thomas or Alex, in that PRB left the shed at under 7 tons when all the other boats that were leaving the shed were at 7.6, 7.7 years ago. And since then, PRB has had structural problems pretty much every race they've ever done, not finished races because of it, never finished the Vendee Globe, on and on and on and on and on. But the fact of the matter is that you say, okay, I'm going to put these, I'm going to add 400 kilos of weight to the boat with these new foils compared to the old foils. And if you're a team with a lot of money or a team that's building a new boat, you say, well, fuck, I don't want that 400 kilos of disadvantage compared to the guy next to me. We're going to figure out how to save this weight in the boat. And where do you save 400 kilos in a boat where the previous generation, they were already trying to do the same thing and stripped out as possible, right? And so now you're going to find 400 kilos. Where do you find 400 kilos in a boat? You find it in carbon and in resin. Yeah. And at that stage, you have a problem on your hands because
you're just
you're adding so much more load to the boat with the foils. You know, the righting moment that you're allowed under the rules is 29 ton meters of righting moment, right? The rig is designed for 30 ton meters of righting moment. And these boats full flying with the right sail combination, you're putting 40 into everything. So it's a massive amount of load. And then to say, oh, well, we'll make the boat lighter. You're just writing, you're writing your will already, you know, you're writing your will saying, well, I'm actually not really going to finish this race. Basically.
So back to Alex. Do you carry a spare rudder blade? Any of these boats?
Has one. Boris has got one, and I don't know the statistic on how many boats in the fleet have got spare rudder blades. I ain't that many. And to be very, very honest, and maybe this is me showing my stupidity, I said to Boris, what in the fuck do you need a spare rudder for? You've already got 2 rudders and 2 kick-up systems, and your rudders have kicked up 30 times over the past 2 years and was never a problem. Now, Alex's problem, you know...
Is it the system or the blade? Have you heard
so they were saying that it was a fishing net that caught the rudder, and that it did more damage than just to the blade. I think what happened is that the shoe of the rudder, which probably has the hook mechanism attached to it, got ripped off when being dragged along by this fishing net.
Ripped out through the back of the boat.
Some part of the back of the boat.
Yep.
And took it all with it. And in which case, what are you going to do? You can't do anything. So a spare rudder in that case probably wouldn't have helped. Is it smart? I think it probably is, because an IMOCA 60 rudder weighs like 19 kilos. And 19 kilos to me seems like a very, very small amount of weight to make sure that you can steer the boat. You know, I mean, honestly, I would probably carry one next time around, especially as time moves on and there's more shit in the water and people hit things more frequently. And as the boats go faster, when you hit something at 10 knots compared to hitting something at 30, we all know at 30, you're going to break shit much worse, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, even if it's just a hole in the front of the rudder, if it used to be a hole in the front of the rudder that you could put a patch over and repair, now it's that, you know, the carbon on both sides of the foam has blown off because of the impact, you know, and you're left with just the stock. So, I mean, not everybody has a spare rudder. Would it have helped Alex? I don't know, but carrying them is becoming a thing now where it didn't used to be. Like all the Volvo 70s have spare rudders, but and the 65s as well, right?
Yep, correct.
With the with on that point, with them hitting things, has there been any feedback as to what, you know, is anyone seeing anything, or is anyone sort of getting any feedback back to the shores as to what they think they're hitting?
The dirty little secret of hitting things is that if you're not in the Atlantic, or near the routes where cargo ships go, what you hit is not something made out of metal or wood or plastic.
Yeah.
It's, you know, it's animals. Yeah. It's all animals.
So it is the sunfish, Jordan. They're on it.
Well, they got a year off from the bloody Sydney Hobart now.
They're pissed off too. No, they've made their way all the way from the Atlantic to the
job of their year, and it's been cancelled.
So, and this isn't a joke. Kojiro Shirashi has much more knowledge of where the whales are on his race course than anyone else, and this is absolutely not a joke, because the Japanese pay attention to where the whales are for obvious reasons.
Scientific
and he has
research.
Data, and he knows when to pay attention. I mean, pay attention. Okay, what are you going to do? But the fact of the matter is if you took a line from the eastern edge of South Africa and you went at a 30-degree angle towards the southwest, all the way down to the ice limit zone, the Agulhas current has made its way through the Southern Ocean there at the moment, which is not a normal thing either. This is a climate change thing. But you've got lots and lots of marine life right there. Where the Vendee Globe people hit shit is right there. Right where the mixing of hot and cold water is, right where all the whales are, right where all the small fish are that whales and dolphins eat. And they all saw whales there, lots of them. So, you know, it's a shame, and it's a terrible thing to have happen. We have the technology. We have this whale pinger now, and that's an Australian thing. I don't know who it is. You know about this, Nick?
Yeah, no, we have seen various comments actually, not only on when we do a little reporting about someone's hit something else again, and the question was to ask specifically about that sort of detection device.
It's not a detection device. It's like the same thing. I don't know if you have it in the outback there, but you have these little plastic. They look like a bullhorn.
The Roo whistles. Yeah.
There you go. And are they ultrasonic, or are they like a regular noise?
No, they're a complete piece of shit. No, they wouldn't work if. But I did convince one of my riding mates to put them on his bike once to make sure that he doesn't hit a roo.
So do they actually whistle or what?
No.
Well, you can't hear it. Like it's kind of the pitch of like a dog can hear it or something. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's exactly the same thing. We have them for deer in the United States.
Yeah.
Well, this thing, you put it in the bulb, in the nose of the bulb.
Yeah.
And it's basically like a little sonar, but you're not detecting anything with it. It's just screaming at everybody, get the hell out of the way.
Coming through.
coming through.
And is that French? Is that French or English?
No,
Wales just wanting its own business.
It's people who've studied whales who know the noises that they need to make. Anyway, I don't really know, but
Whales are going, is that boat talking to me? Did anyone know? Hey, did that boat talk to you?
Clack, right in the back of the head, right? No, but for me, the reality of it is this. You have 5 appendages in the water, right? Everybody's dream is that those appendages don't make a sound. And when they don't make a sound, you've then got 5 knife blades in the water ready to tap the head of a whale.
Yep.
If one of those appendages whistles, the whales hear that from a long, long way away. They understand that something is there that's not the normal thing. And of course, you're not going to run into them. Honestly. I mean, I've always subscribed to that theory. And when we did the Barcelona, we had very quiet appendages. And I said to the short team guy, I said, sand one of the rudders more square so that it makes a little bit of noise. And we left and we didn't hit anything.
Love it. There you go. Great theory.
Just so many good points from tonight, Jay.
It's stupid because it's probably not that quick, but it works as far as I can tell.
I'll tell you what's not quick. Hitting a whale's not quick.
No, it's even dangerous, I've heard. Sam Davies says it's dangerous.
Yeah.
Very dangerous. Cool. Wow.
Yeah. Well, okay. So we're over halfway. We've got a pretty good challenge going on at the front of the fleet. It's pretty exciting, the last part of it. Obviously, it goes up and around. Cape Horn coming up, obviously, which is the pinnacle of everyone in the race's dream. I know that.
Yeah, in like 10 or 12 days or something. We got a lot of racing between there.
The people that haven't done it before, it's a milestone of their life. I mean, there is a certain element of adventure to this, but the guys in the front are battling it out, and well, I think it's going to be exciting. I think the next few days as they try and there's a lot of weather going on. So
yeah, there's a few little stages left. That being one, the next being when full throttle down trade wind back up the Atlantic.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's going to be going to see some broken boats.
Yeah,
right there.
I agree with you. That's because there's going to be a lot of factors involved there. There's going to be fatigue. There's going to be boat fatigue, and there's going to be obviously the stupidity level that comes into it.
So you've got our 2 front-running foilers there who both have damage to the port side foil, which is the foil that they will need to use from about 15 degrees south to the finish, more or less. And those are the boats that I'm talking about that can break, because an IMOCA 60 now will do 20 knots in 18 knots of breeze at 60 true wind angle.
Yeah.
And so the VMG upwind angle now is 60 true wind angle at 20 knots.
Wow.
And I'm going to tell you, I stopped. I said, you know what? I've had enough of this shit. We were doing some training, and we'd already done 48 hours of it, and Boris wanted to go back out for another 3 days. And I said, listen, I'm going to clean the shed, man. I'm not doing that. I fucking had it with this. Because I mean, we sailed around at 60 to 70 true wind angle for 48 hours with all the boats in Port La Forêt on a training thing, and it was like, what are we doing? We're just smashing ourselves to bits for nothing, It's so rough that you can feel your organs hitting the inside of your rib cage when you're trying to sleep. It's unbelievable. I've never felt anything like it on a boat before, and I've sailed all the different kinds of boats, and none of them are that rough. It's unreal.
Wow.
And these dudes are just after a race around the world, they're just taking it, they just have figured out how to take it and just close their eyes. It's like bad.
All right. So we've got your budget. Are you going or what?
Yeah.
Okay. There you go. Good answer.
Yeah. We've already said I have the full budget and a new boat design.
To make it happen though, what do you want to see on IMOCA change in the rule to make sure the boats are safer, or just keep it as is and use that as a parameters?
They're talking about scantlings mostly because the ocean race people are very excited about putting some scantlings in the rule. But is it really necessary? I don't know. You can break any boat no matter how strong the scantlings are, as we can see from the 70s, who had very, very reasonable hull shell scantlings already.
Yeah.
So I mean, I wouldn't suggest they change anything. One thing that I really think is they're smart people, these guys in Brittany. They've the IMOCA class has been going for a very long time, and they're very good at limiting the pace, allowing development, but limiting the pace of it to keep as many boats as possible competitive. And also they've taken the big steps when they've had to make the boats reliable enough. Safe, reliable, two different things, but to make the boats reliable enough to get around the world. You know, since they introduced the one design mast, for example, only 2 boats have lost their rig. One due to absolute user error, and one due to massive overloading on a 1K design. So
yeah.
So, you know, the boats are very good. They're very safe. Development is limited to a reasonable pace to keep everybody sort of in the game. You know, they're not allowing T-foil rudders until perhaps the next Vendee, which is a good thing, because if you do that, you obsolete 3/4 of the fleet instantly.
Yep.
And you make the boats way more fragile, because then when you hit something, you're doing 40, and that's the end of it.
Yep.
You know, so I think it's smart. I don't think there's any need to full fly across the ocean. I think it's pretty much too rough to do that anyway.
Yep.
We thought that the foil on the rudder might help keep the nose up, so you could use it like the 14 skiffs do, you know, where you drive the...
That's not how it gets used.
I know,
It's
but
not
in safe conditions.
Yeah, if you're not standing on the top of the rudder head with 2 guys on a trapeze. Yeah, you basically, what happens is that the T-foil rudder turns the thing into a guided missile. The boat will it'll just explode as soon as, you know. And they're also talking about it being one design, which means they're going to try to keep it simple, which is good in theory, but in reality, if you can't use it like you're talking about, where you can drag the transom down, you know, if it's just a fixed blade, if it's just a fixed elevator on a blade, it's just dangerous because you can't turn it off. And so
yeah, and then start having issues with the kick up and all sorts of stuff. So it's not...
Well, kick up rudders with a T-foil, that's not a very normal thing anyway. You know,
that's
exactly.
If
you want your elevator to survive, you better not let it kick up.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, fun
so
times.
yeah, there's a few little bit of a journey to make that.
Are you still involved with the ocean race, Nick, or what?
No, negative. I'm watching from afar, and yeah, I'm not entirely convinced on what's currently going on, tell you the honest truth. But
the current trajectory, we could say.
Yeah. There you go. But anyway, that's a whole nother episode.
What about the America's Cup?
Oh, let's talk about the America's Cup, shall we?
Good. Righto. Beauty.
Well done, me.
Yeah, nice. Segue. Okay.
Great.
Anybody
segue.
got any views?
Huh?
Yeah, I've been loving it.
I'm going to throw some themes at you. So obviously we've just had the World Series event. The next sailing doesn't start till January 15. So day one, if I gave you some themes, the boats are incredibly fragile. Lots of electronic things. I reckon the Kiwis were playing games with their mark roundings when they were trying to do full turns to see if they could stay on foil. They were just practicing. They weren't even really trying at all. Day two, pre-starts. We're actually going to see proper pre-starts. And then the skill set is moding into lightning wind. Who can mode best into lightning wind. And then day three, it's just trying not to touch down. They're the themes I reckon we've sort of got from the America's Cup. So first off, what's the standout element that you guys have seen?
Shoot away, Ryan.
My impression is that the boats aren't fragile, honestly. I think that the thing that's, you know, there's a bit of fragility in the electronics, if you believe Ben Ainsley and his crybabying about his foil arms. There's that. But in general, I mean, there are no breakdowns. Everybody's going sailing. You see these absolutely gigantic nosedives, and nobody's worse for the wear. The boats don't even capsize anymore because they figured out how to keep them upright. I think the boats are plenty strong for what they're doing. I mean, we haven't seen them out there trying to do 50 knots in 20 knots of breeze, but I'm sure that's only hopefully we do see it. That would be good.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, I think they're not as fragile as they'd like, as they're made out to be, and I think that there's I will agree 100% about day one and the gamesmanship of the Kiwis, and I think that gamesmanship extends to to all 3 days. I don't think they're trying very hard at all. I think they're out there trying to learn how to sail their boat better. I think that when you see some of the things that happen, it's just too convenient that it happens at the time that it does,
Yeah, well,
yesterday's example was massive when they were like, 700 or, nearly 800 meters behind. And then they just got on the foil and stayed on the foil and just drove pretty well straight down to the bottom mark and, left the US for dead. But, there is an element of that. But one thing before we go on is when this all started a while back, we were talking about it and we were sort of worried that there would be one boat that, completely blew it away. What I am happy about is that is not the case. New Zealand still does show some vulnerability, and unless they're pulling the rug over everyone's eyes, and it does mean that it gives these other two guys, which I'm not going to talk about Ineos just yet, but the American Magic and Prada team, I think they've still got some, they've got some work to do, but I think that's going to be a bit closer than we thought, and I'm really excited about that.
I think from what I heard with the commentary, and this may be wrong, but the Prada and Team New Zealand still have one set of foils to go.
Correct.
But the other boats have tapped out.
Right.
Where they're to. What that means, who knows? In reality, maybe they've got the good gear on as it is. But to me, Prada looked really good. Good maneuvers, good timing with everything, and
Jimmy
I really
aggressive
on
the start line.
I like the double-sided helmsman thing, like the minimal movement straight into it, and you can see they're settled straight away out of attack.
In saying that, the other thing is I thought that America had really good downwind speed.
Oh, phenomenal! Yeah, that was my next point.
And if you're looking at how this regatta is going to pan out, boats are going to have certain points where they're going to work well, and we know that. But if you've already got pace at this stage, the other guys are going to want to catch you. I'm sure of it, that they know that they can pull a bit more out of it, and I think that that's a really important thing.
So the other key point I had was chatting with Tyson. He's like, check out the speeds of these boats. And I mean, there's not much wind at all. What was the maximum it tapped out at 14 knots during the regatta?
Yeah, I mean, we saw 45s and
47.9 knots.
Yeah,
that's pace on.
Yesterday was amazing.
Yeah.
Yesterday there was never more than a ripple on the water, and they're doing 35 knots.
Yeah.
These guys, those boats are doing between 5 and 7 times the wind speed. It's outrageous.
Yeah.
It is. It's great watching.
To be honest with you, I was, as with everyone, we were all wondering what was going to happen, and I'm just stoked that there's boats coming in, and I mean, coming into the zone and going and battling in the zone. I thought that was fantastic, and I really hope that it continues that way because I love it. I really love it. And I'll tell you what was good. The footage from yesterday was they had sort of a inline footage of when Ineos was going downwind in displacement mode behind the Kiwi, but one lap, albeit
She's
one lap.
Pretty quick in displacement mode.
Don't laugh. But you had the foils, the Keely Foily things up and out of the water, and the Keely Foily thing, you look at the shape of them, and it was amazing, the difference.
Yeah.
Phenomenal.
The Kiwis are very flat
Yep.
with the whatever you want to call them, the foil.
More triangular and flat, yeah.
Whereas the others are quite a bit more triangulated. So,
yeah, the Kiwi foils are way higher aspect ratio, so should be
fast.
Same amount of lift for less drag, so that should be an advantage. The flatness, what I have noticed is that the other boats, when they sail around, I think you can put your foil arms kind of however you want, because I feel like when the Kiwis have the foil arm all the way down, their foil is like very much in the moth mode, in that it's it's at 45 degrees to the water. Like in a moth, you're heeled way to weather, but the Kiwis have got that going on already with the angle of the foil arm. Whereas it seems like the other guys have gone for more of a foil arm when it goes down.
Flat. It's
foils
vertical.
are more horizontal underwater. And so they don't have nearly the leeway resistance that the Kiwis do. And I think it's something that we should have a look at on some replays. But when they go go around the top mark and they try to bear away, it's amazing the sliding that they're doing, you know. And I think that I have a feeling that if you look at the Kiwi boat, it probably does quite a bit less of that, and that the less leeway is massive because it increases your apparent, and it's just a big positive in all respects. And I think that that's one of the things that I noticed the most. That and the Kiwi hull design seems to be very, very low drag. You could see them when they were trying to get started with that same camera view. As soon as they put the foil in the water, there's absolutely no boat in the water to lure to the bustle or whatever you want to call the skeg in the middle of the boat. The boat's fully out of the water on the leeward side. It's just the weather side. So as soon as there's a puff, the weather side's out too, and now all of a sudden it's out of the water.
Pops up.
Yeah, whereas I don't think that that's exactly the case with some of the other boats.
Which was the example I was talking about yesterday when they just sort of blasted past down the middle of the track. But the other point that came up today in discussion was the fact that the other three skippers are all seasoned match racers, and the Pete Burling starting has been sort of showing up a little bit of a interesting situation.
That's the only weakness I see in the Kiwi camp is that.
Interesting on that. So in the day one, when we were talking about the Kiwis sort of playing with where they would come around the mark and then roll into attack or roll into a jibe, do a rounding and then into attack jibe, and they did 3 of those in that on day one.
And even let America go off to the boundary and then left them on their own. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So that was they managed to create an overlap coming into the top mark.
Correct.
They got the overlap. Magic, they let
away.
Magic, as you say, go, and they rolled straight into a jibe, so they went all the way around and left them alone. No match racer that I know of, unless there was some plan, would you take your guy, if you've got the lead, you take your guy to the lay line.
To the boundary.
Yeah, you pin them against the boundary or the lay line. You pin them out there, so they have to follow. That's the absolute rule. Particularly heading into downwind. So you're trying to take them out there. And to roll straight off like that, it was just like, to me, watching, I was just going, wow, that's just craziness. But maybe they're just experimenting. They're totally experimenting.
Mate.
He says.
If you're doing a yacht race, you are doing every single thing you can to beat the opposition.
Yeah, so this is
and maybe they thought downwind left was the side to go. Well, I highly doubt.
I disagree.
They're like, hang on, boy. Glenn said, "Hey, Pete, let's try something here."
Yeah. Doesn't work that way.
Let's see if we can throw it away.
I disagree completely. I think those people have absolute confidence in their boat speed, and there was, as you say, there was.
Have you met Grant Dalton?
Yeah,
they would have torn him a new one after that race.
I agree, but the fact of the matter is during that first day, they did it more than once. They did a full 270 at the bottom once, and they did a barrel way into a dive at the top once. Yep. And both of those maneuvers are things that you have to do if you're in a situation on the race course, and being able to complete that maneuver, you can be guaranteed that the rest of those guys can't do it. You can be guaranteed.
The Italians did a beautiful one. The Italians,
I didn't see
but the Italians are so elegant.
Well, it could be down to the double steering.
It's such an elegant. It's an elegant boat. I mean, look at it.
They did it with this.
Talking with the hands,
Hey, mate, it's a beautiful boat.
I think that the Kiwis go into that regatta going, we're here to learn, because we've got a slot through to the finals already, and it doesn't make any difference.
Yeah, well, that's it.
And you're right. And every interview I saw, especially with Tukey, who's talking, it's great learning out there. So, there's an element for sure.
And that's
they didn't, they were very happy to win, but it wasn't really, I don't believe that's the objective. No. Talking about Italian communication, on the other hand, I have to say that this double helmsman thing could be an absolute 100% disaster. And you've got an Italian involved in that communication I don't know him. I'm not going to insult him.
And you've got a mainsail in between an Italian and an Aussie. How is he meant to communicate?
And you've got another Italian playing the box with the mainsail on it, right?
And the Aussie's a ginger.
I was just about to say, to get that thing around the course in all elegance, with never a foot put wrong, with two guys driving the thing and talking to each other the entire time. And what it does, which is amazing, it's a massive advantage. It means that there's two people thinking about tactics, and it means that they have 360 view of the race course all the time, which nobody else has got.
Really interesting.
I think it's big. I think it's a big advantage.
Yeah.
And the thing that I learned two things yesterday that I didn't know about. The first thing I learned is that whoever is not driving is playing the foil, which is
correct.
Which is also pretty cool because they're the one who has the best feeling for what needs to happen with it.
Yeah.
And that the twist grips on the wheel are the traveler.
Ah, okay.
And that you see the traveler going all the time. And you never hear any communication between the mainsail trimmer and the driver. And I was thinking, fuck, these guys are in sync. But in fact, it's the driver who's playing the traveler.
You know, the other thing,
it's a giant dinghy, this thing.
Yep.
It's a giant dinghy.
The other advantage of the two helms is in the jibes and the tacks, coming out of them clean. And that, I reckon, is actually going to end up making a lot of difference because they've got less chance of touching down because the guy that's steering is the best steerer. The two best steerers on the boat are coming out of the manoeuvres and flying the boat. So
the interesting thing, that's true. But the other interesting thing about it is that you've got Glenn Ashby who's driving on leeward side for Peter Burling. So I don't think there's much in it there.
But what's he ever done? Saying
that they do transfer.
What's he ever done at full pace?
I don't know.
Ashby.
All right, we got one more thing we have to throw into this discussion before we have to call it quits. I think we all know what we're going to throw out there. INEOS.
Oh, yeah. All right, I'm going to give one for you.
Yep.
Okay.
The boys, because living in the Anzac Embassy in Sydney the last few weeks with Stu Bannatyne, Darryl Wislang, myself, and Kai Hurst, a lot of discussion about the Cup. So everything, like we were watching it all. But then there's a website in New Zealand called Trade Me.
Yeah, I've seen it.
Which is essentially
I've seen
like our Gumtree or whatever it is. Anyway, 75-foot America's Cup yacht.
in the section where you sell your dogs.
Black dog banter.
In the pets
seriously,
section.
who put this up there, I think it was Ben from Britain, by the way, who put this up, and the banter that was going on was like, thank God someone's been listening to us. Yep. The banter, it was unbelievable. I've just recently tried to log into it, but it's been taken down by the administrator.
Oh, damn, spoil the fun.
I saw it this morning.
I'll tell you what.
Oh, hilarious.
I tell you what, though,
it made it up to $67, I think.
$67?
Hey, wow. 26.76 I saw. 2,600.
Oh, big.
Well, you got to. I mean,
okay. Well, I'm going to throw some.
All right, the serious side.
I'll throw some facts at you. So
we've got 15% of Sirius left.
I'll throw some facts at you. So the fastest speed recorded on the boat during the racing was 49.1 knots, was by INEOS.
Yep, we know that.
Yeah.
The first to come off the foils. So the indication to me when they're starting to struggle on their foils is that they say sail higher and higher. The sooner they sail a high angle downwind, is when they start to. They're worried about coming off foils. That's your first indication. Clearly, my only suspicion, and I want to throw it out there, I've got no idea, is that their foil setup is low drag, low lift. It doesn't look like it when you look at it. It looks exactly the opposite of that, or it's something to do with their rig.
Well, the rigs are all well, as far as we know, rigs are all pretty well one design, other than
the spar is one design.
spar is one design. Yeah.
The talk is the Kiwis can control their top section, their top part of their sails better than everyone else. That's the rumor going around. So
You see a massive amount more camber down low in the other boats as well. They're very, very flat in the bottom of their sail. They don't have the power.
In
Ineos.
They've got a draggy hull with that gigantic, ugly skeg thing that's diamond shaped and has square edges on it. And I mean, we could talk about that abomination all day, but dragging that thing through the water with a rig where you can see that they don't have power in the bottom of the mainsail compared to the other boats. And then I don't know what to say about the foils other than that generally when you talk about a low drag, high speed foil, it's the high aspect ones of the Kiwis, not the triangular delta wing ones of the Brits. So I think as Ben said in the press conference last night, there's 5 or 6 areas of the boat that have to work well, and we got a few of them to work on.
Yeah.
He also said in the press conference that he didn't see them changing the hull shape between now and the start.
So with their foils, as Boise said, they've used their 6 foils. What they are allowed to do is change the shape of the foil up to 20%. They're allowed to make alterations on that. But from what you're saying, Ryan, and I believe it, there's something to do with the rig. So there's the bottom of the Italian rig and the Kiwi rig, there doesn't seem to be a boom sort of structure in there. So they can carry a lot more camber right down to the deck, whereas the Yanks and the Poms have a boom. And as you say, they're quite flat.
I think the Kiwis had a boom.
It's a different look.
They don't have a boom now.
Maybe I'll tell a lie. Maybe it was
probably
the US. But definitely the Kiwis, there's a patch on the back of the boat where probably the Traveller used to be. And they've moved now the Traveller back much further.
Yep.
You can see the patch, which is all the artwork has been covered over with some sort of patching in there. So there was something going on there for sure. And so they've gone back and forth.
The boat that can carry the most camber in the bottom of the mainsail that I've seen thus far is the Americans. And that was the case with the Mule. The Mule had massive ability. They had a push-pull hydraulic ram on the back of that little boom they had, and they were putting gigantic amounts of camber in the bottom of the main all the time. Mm-hmm. And they do it now as well with a boom. I have a feeling they have a boom with a hinge in the middle of it in order to be able to do that.
Do you reckon that's why they're going so fast downhill?
Yep.
Yeah.
Low drag.
I do.
Low drag, thinning the wing out. A little bit of.
No, I think it's because they have shitloads of power down low.
You're also thinning the wing out. If you've got the leeward side, will be always in a wing shape, and then if you have less camber, if you have less camber, you've got a fatter wing, and therefore you're in fat wing mode. But
which is more drag.
Yeah, and from the wing experience we've had with the soft wings, it's critical. Once you get into, you want more power, you want to get rid of drag. That's the key to it, and that's probably what's going on there.
All right, so you're Ben Ainsley.
It's true though.
What are you going to do?
If we're Ben,
pray for 20 knots.
Yeah.
Get stronger T.
No, but it kind of amuses me and pains me a little bit.
Yeah,
like seeing all the comments and shit and stuff, and all the bashing and the hating, and that's not our sport at all.
No, that's not.
There's some smart guys there, man.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised that
if they come out
there's going to be something. Let's step back a few years when Grant Simmer literally turned that Oracle team around from 7-0 down or whatever it was against the Kiwis on the 72s, and when they were with Oracle to win the cup. So we know we're certainly not writing them off.
We know Grant very well, right? All of us.
So,
and we know that he's not going to be one sitting going, "Oh well, that was us."
Yeah.
Can we step away from the boat and the design problems for a minute and talk about the way they get it around the course, because I think there we see a team that's very flustered because their boat doesn't quite go as fast as it should. It probably isn't as controllable as some of the other boats from what you see on the water. But they fly around up and down in the water. They have a hard time turning corners. They have a hard time tacking and jibing compared to all the other teams. And, I don't think you can say it's the sailors because, at that level, they're all, I don't think you can really, the guys from New Zealand or the guys from the Italian team, you could put them on the Ineos boat. I think they'd have the same problems. You know what I mean? And but it looks like they struggle mightily just to get the thing around the course, and it's probably a credit to them that they're doing as well as they are, getting it around the course, because it looks very, very, very difficult to me compared to the other guys. You see everybody else is at ease with what they're doing. You say the Italians are elegant. The Kiwis don't seem to really put a foot wrong unless they want to. The Americans are at full pace all the time. And, like you heard Dean yesterday, you heard Dean one time just say, fuck, this is annoying. We got to fix it. But it's one thing that they've got to fix. It's not all the way around the race course. Whereas the British, they've had lots of boats, they've sailed a lot. And they're struggling getting the thing around the course.
Do you think the fact that they have those panels in front of them, they're kind of watching their Instagram feed as they're going around the course?
Watching all the hate? I don't know.
I'm not going to whine.
It's just typical of that program, though. They're all sideways. Everybody else is fore and aft. They're
sideways.
They might come back with some bikes. Who knows?
Oh God, it just seems like the thing is awkward. It seems like the boat is awkward. The design of it is awkward. It's not okay. Can we take a poll very quickly for what we think is the best looking boat of all the bunch? Not graphics, but let's say hull shape. I mean,
I like the Italians.
I like the Italians.
No, I'm Italian.
I like the Americans.
Yeah. There you go.
It's not because I'm rah America. I think they've got a beautiful looking boat. I would say Americans, Kiwis, Italians, and then the Brits. But I think we can all agree that when you see the hull shape of the two British boats, let's not just start with the second one. Let's go back to the first one. It's like they've plucked them out of outer space, and the other guys have designed boats.
They haven't even advertised that on Trade Me.
Yeah.
No, because they put it in a dumpster.
You can't sell the first boat. Got to use
England.
The side view of the American boat towards the stern, I love that. I love the look of that. I like it from side on. I really do like.
One step further, I'll go one step further and just say that watching this last week, and you watch them going around the course, that all the boats. I mean, even Ineos to an extent. They're so graceful on the water. They look fantastic, and I think it's a really cool thing. The way they maneuver and the way they go through just the tacks and jibes are just so cool. Love it.
So the one thing I would add is I wouldn't write any of the teams off right now.
Yeah. Oh, early days.
I would
and
not.
This is apart from bragging rights over Christmas, over your turkey. It's not worth a great deal towards the end result. So,
but you'd have to say that America and Italy would have to be quite happy with where they are. They know that it's probably a big step up,
and probably disappointed.
And disappointed, to an extent.
No, disappointed for the Poms.
And disappointment, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there was some nice notes going back and forth.
The most interesting thing to me about the whole event is the wondrous variety of noises that come out of these boats. Each boat has its own very distinct noise and I think it's just a distinct noise of pumps more than anything.
Yeah.
But they're all different. I don't understand why they're all different. You'd imagine they'd all be pretty much the same. I mean, you can hear them ease the sheet on the winch. That's obvious, but the rest of it is all a bit weird. And the Kiwi noise is the coolest noise.
I'm not sure it's been published yet, but I was walking down the dock yesterday, ran into Bo Outridge, who'd been speaking to our mate Jody Shields or Randy Cunningham, and they were putting a little montage together. So
of noises.
Keep your eye on the on either one of their pages, or if it's not published yet, or we will publish it. But from what I heard, and if they manage to pull it off, it'll be funny.
I reckon
are they going to do Christmas carols with it?
They should actually get the audio from War of the Worlds. Remember that movie, War of the Worlds? It sounds to me. It's what I keep hearing. I'm going,
it's really weird, isn't it? Yeah. It's kind of an eerie, vibrating sort of noise. Yeah. Love it.
Amazing.
Cool. All right. Well, I think we've touched all the topics we wanted to touch. Good fun, Ryan. Good on you, mate.
Appreciate it.
Awesome,
Thanks for
Ryan.
having me, you guys.
Yeah, no, we
enjoy your evening. I'm just starting my day here in a pouring rain.
Well, we haven't seen each other since La Sub de Lone, the last Vendee start, and so there we go.
Oh,
and
last time,
maybe the next one you're on the start line with all the money that's about to come pouring in, old mate.
Yeah, hopefully.
Not to mention the merchandise pack, which is on its way.
I might set up a Patreon account or something.
And I think you might get one of these as well.
Yeah, stubby holder coming through.
Stubby holder.
That's awesome. We did that to Boris. All the swivels on Boris's boat, we put stubby holders, but they were one had a naked chick on it, and one was
Very cool.
Love it, mate.
Yes.
Yeah. Awesome.
Good on you, Ryan. Thanks so much, man.
Thank you guys very much, and you have a nice day.
Yeah.
Here.
And all right, we'll sign out. Thanks for everyone for listening. That's it. Show's over. See you, everyone.
Farewell.
Great.